the beautiful, wonderful, and Tara Reid lookalike, or Tara Reid doppelganger twin, Stefania Maurizi, brilliant journalist, maybe on this list, this year's list of Indie Media Award honorees, but was not on the initial list. Certainly deserves and earns the honor to be there. She's been publishing and working with WikiLeaks for years and years and years. So, first of all, I want to shout out to INN's Comrade Misty Winston. Stefania is my hero. We need more people like her. Hashtag Free Assange Now. There was some kind of an event in Oslo where they actually had one of the freed Guantanamo Bay prisoners who was giving a speech about imprisonment and torture, and Jeremy Corbyn was there, and it was an all-star lineup that was shared by Matt O'Brien, and shout out to Matt as well. Hope you're watching. Good to see you. Thank you for all you do out there to keep awareness and keep this story out there and alive, because I know that you're an activist pretty deep, and Misty's said that you're fantastic, and we kind of agree. So, judge orders the Crown Prosecution Service to come clean about the destruction of key documents on Julian Assange. Now it's really starting to come out, folks. It's like years later. There's a lot of pressure to free him. The Biden administration is now kind of under orders. They're the third administration now to be pushing this. WikiLeaks. So after years of running up against a brick wall, the first crack has appeared with the latest ruling on Stefania's FOIA case issued by Judge O'Connor. In addition to the ruling, British Labour MP John McDonnell has just obtained new info from the Crown Prosecution Service. McDonnell is calling for an independent inquiry into the CPS's role in the Assange case. That's big. That's a Labour member of Parliament. Like, what?
Yep.
For the last 6 years, they've rejected all of our attempts to shed light on the destruction of key documents in the Assange case, even though the emails were deleted when the high-profile, controversial case was still ongoing. Amazing. But now the British authorities at the CPS have to come clean. They must declare whether they hold any information as to when, how, and why that documentation was deleted. And if they do hold it, they must either release it to us or clarify the grounds for their refusal. This order was just issued by the London First Tier Tribunal, chaired by Judge O'Connor, in response to Stefania's litigation based on the UK Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA, in which they're represented by top-notch FOIA specialist Estelle Dehaene of Cornerstone Barristers in London. Wow, that's like earthquake stuff. This is big crack in the wall. Like, are they starting to, let a little air out of the balloon so that they can prep to maybe let him out? Like, I got another story coming up that I think they're going to have to let him go. I really do. So CPS
we can whisper of a dream.
I'm screaming of a dream. But the CPS must comply with this judicial order by June 23rd. So we're going to find out quick. And any failure on their part to do so could lead to contempt proceedings. And I don't know what that entails and what the punishments are under contempt. Ever since 2017, when we first discovered the documents had been destroyed, we've consistently run up against a brick wall. The CPS has always maintained that deletion of those documents was in conformity with their standard operating procedure. A previous ruling in 2017 by the London First Tier Tribunal, chaired by a different judge, Andrew Bartlett, averred that there was nothing untoward about their deletion, right? And that the British body instituted to uphold information rights, the ICO, has always been pleased with the decision that there was nothing untoward about it. This new ruling by Judge O'Connor is the first crack in the brick wall. So, Judge O'Connor has also confirmed that WikiLeaks is a media organization, not a spy agency, though he rejected all our requests to access the full correspondence between CPS and the U.S. State Department, the U.S. Department of Justice, the Swedish Prosecution Authority, and the Ecuadorian authorities on the Julian Assange case from 2010 to 2019. And we know why. And we're gonna talk about why in a minute, but it seems that at some point they actually reclassified Assange as a terrorist and WikiLeaks as a terrorist organization, which is why there were plans drawn up to assassinate him in London. And again, we're going to get to all this, right? I'm sorry. Relative to the correspondence between CPS and Ecuador, the judge ruled in favor of the CPS, maintaining an exemption to the neither confirm nor deny that the British and Ecuadorian authorities had exchanged emails on the case. Great. Free Julian Assange. Free him right now. Let this man out now. I don't care that it's 4 a.m. Let him out. As for the case on all other correspondence between the CPS and Swedish authorities, between CPS and State Department, Justice Department, Judge O'Connor ruled that if released, the documentation would risk damaging the relationship of trust and confidence that underlies information sharing between prosecuting authorities, and that it would likely have a chilling effect on the relationship with both the Swedish and U.S. authorities, as well as with other foreign authorities. Yeah, because there's a lot of dirty laundry in there. The ruling was issued in 2 forms: a decision available to the public and a separate closed decision which can be accessed only by the UK authorities at the CPS and by ICO. That's interesting. The documentation on which the closed ruling is based includes, among other documents, over 552 pages of correspondence between the CPS and the Department of Justice, between the CPS and the State Department, between 2010 and 2019, including the provision of legal advice and queries on wider strategic matters relating to Mr. Assange's extradition to that country. That's the stuff that they were talking about in the Isikoff letter, in the Isikoff piece for Yahoo, the one where Pompeo was talking about assassinating or have either him or somebody from CIA or someone from MI5 assassinating Assange in a shootout on a London street. I remember that was very clear. They were talking about that back in the fall.
Yep.
Right? So, amazing stuff. So that was given, like they just said right there, like she said, that was given to CPS and ICO. They now definitely have or have to reveal those 552 pages of correspondence. We know they exist. I would like to know what's in that correspondence too. So this correspondence is part of the documentation which we've been requesting under FOIA for years and which has always been denied to us, and yet accessing it would be crucial as British authorities are assisting the U.S. government in extraditing a journalist for revealing war crimes and torture as if he was a mafia boss or drug dealer, and jailing him as if he were a terrorist.
I love how you literally to your coffee. Coffee.
My daughter literally licks her lips after she eats, so now I know where she gets it from. Thank you. Thank you.
Coffee. You're welcome.
I'm Harvey Keitel. It's Harvey Keitel in Pulp Fiction. From Amnesty International to the International Federation. We have fun here, folks. Even though this is horrific stuff. Man's locked up in prison for life and facing 175 years in prison, but we're giggling and we have to make light of this as best we can.
But see, it wasn't like a normal there's the hot that's hot.
That's good.
But no, yours was coffee. That's anyway. Continue.
Thank you. So from Amnesty International to the International Federation of Journalists, all major organizations for the defense of human rights and freedom of the press have all called for the extradition case to be dropped and Assange freed. He remains in prison, however, waiting for British justice to decide on his appeal against extradition to the United States, where he risks 175 years in prison for obtaining and publishing classified U.S. government files. Let's just talk about 175 years. 175 years? Okay. All requests to drop the charges and free Julian Assange have been ignored by the U.S. and British governments. All decisions and opinions of highly respected UN bodies like the UN Working Group on Arbitrary Detention or the UN Special Rapporteur on Torture from 2016 to 2022, Nils Melzer, have been completely ignored by the British government, if not ridiculed, as occurred with the UNWGAD decision. Now that Judge O'Connor has rejected our request to access these documents, in particular the correspondence between the US and UK, the oversight rule that the Fourth Estate should play also risks being severely undermined. And yet we are not alone in our call for public scrutiny. In addition to this authoritative report by Nils Melzer and our FOIA battle, recently a British Labour Member of Parliament, John McDonnell, has submitted a FOIA request to the CPS, full of detailed questions which were just answered by the Crown Prosecution Service. Speaking to IFQ, John McDonnell told them that it's become clear that there must now be an independent inquiry into the role of the CPS in relation to the case of Julian Assange. We need full openness and transparency. I like that. So this talks about the role of the prosecution service in the Assange case. What did it do? It's been a key player since the very beginning, 2010, the year in which Assange and WikiLeaks published the first classified U.S. documents for which he risks life in prison. And the very same year, he ended up under investigation in Sweden for alleged rape. Since 2015, the author of this article, Stefania, has been engaged in trench warfare to unearth the facts about Julian Assange. The author of, and the WikiLeaks journalist through FOIA cases in the UK. Oh, right. So she wants to know what they're talking about and what they know. In UK, Sweden, US, Australia, we've experienced tremendous pushback, and the process has been fabulously expensive. 4 governments have been denying us access to the documentation. And nonetheless, our FOIA work has permitted unearthing some crucial information, such as the fact that it was the CPS that advised the prosecutors with the Swedish Protection Authority against the only investigative strategy which could have led to a quick resolution of the Swedish case, questioning Assange in London rather than insisting on questioning him only after extraditing him to Sweden. Why?
Sweden, yeah.
Yeah. This legal advice was delivered by Paul Close, a lawyer with CPS's Special Crime Division, which is the division responsible for prosecuting high-profile cases and helped create the legal and diplomatic quagmire which helped keep Assange arbitrarily detained in London from 2010, initially under house arrest for 18 months, and then confined in the Ecuadorian embassy for 7 years.
In prison for 7 years.
Embassy. That wasn't a prison. Now he's been in Belmarsh, a real prison. In 2013,
yes,
even the Swedish authorities began to question the dead end into which they had waded at the advice of the British authorities by insisting on extradition. They considered dropping the extradition case, writing to the CPS, "Hope I didn't ruin your weekend." Why would a Swedish prosecutor dropping an extradition attempt for a sex case in Sweden ruin the weekend of CPS authorities? There are too many unanswered questions in this case. Some of the key decisions were taken when the CPS was headed by Keir Starmer, current leader of the British Labour Party. What role, if any, did Starmer play in the Julian Assange case? Why is he currently leading the Labour Party, and why was he Prime Minister? Briefly, the highly anomalous handling of the Swedish case by both the Swedish prosecutors and the CPS resulted in justice for no one, contributed to the devastation of Assange's health, cost British taxpayers at least £13.2 million to keep the Ecuadorian embassy under siege, resulted in the UN Working Group on Arbitrary Detention decision that Sweden and Britain had arbitrarily detained him since 2010, and finally led the UN Special Rapporteur on Torture, Nils Melzer, to denounce 50 perceived due process violations. Not much, right?
Yep.
What role did Keir Starmer play in that? I'll let you kind of wax poetic on that for a second. I think you have some thoughts on Keir Starmer and what the Brits have done to Julian.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much. I mean, the fact that they've thrown it straight up. He said he lied. Like, he said he lied in this case. Like, their main witness said he was lying.
Yep.
Like, yeah, how are we still detaining him?
And why are the Brits detaining him other than completely being bullied
other than
by the U.S.?
Keep him in a holding pattern for us. They have no case against him.
Yep.
He's an Australian citizen to begin with. So you're trying him for something that was lied about. He's not. Where's the Australian government to get this guy out of here?
Well, we know what just happened. They just made a deal. They just made a deal. They're gonna do more NASA shit in Australia, basically.
Right.
And that's what they got.
Right.
And that's what they got for looking the other way and shutting the hell up, because Albo was supposed to say something to Biden. Yeah, thanks. Thank you. So again, thankful. I'm very grateful tonight. The Swedish case is now,
I know.
Swedish case is now closed. Yet not only do these questions and the alleged violations flagged by Nils Melzer remain unaddressed, but the CPS is still playing a prominent role in the Assange case, as the United States is acting through CPS to try to extradite him to the U.S. That's why it's crucial to dig into the actions of the CPS to assess its full correspondence with the American, Swedish, and Ecuadorian authorities, and in particular, to access the correspondence of Paul Close. Why? All authorities have refused to clarify how many pages they hold on Assange, but the Crown Prosecution Service did provide us with an estimate of their correspondence with SPA, that's the one in Sweden, from 2010 to 2015. They reportedly exchanged between 7,200 and 9,600 pages. Over the last 8 years of our FOIA battle, we've obtained just 551 pages from the CPS and 1,373 pages from the Swedish Prosecution Authority. Of these 1,373 pages, only 310 represent correspondence between SPA and CPS. They got a bunch of other stuff with it. When we tried to access the full correspondence of Paul Close, the CPS replied that his account had been deleted after he retired in 2014, and that, quote, all the data associated with his account was deleted when he retired and cannot be recovered. How convenient.
We covered this.
Yep.
By the way, on I think INN News we covered it as well.
I think you did. Is that Kiriakou did that part? I think that had something to do with a Kiriakou thing, maybe.
Somebody.
Sweden also destroyed a substantial part of the documentation on the case, including an email from the FBI dated March 2017, when we know the CIA was formulating plans to kidnap or kill Julian Assange. We discovered this fact only last February, and only because the Crown Prosecution Service disclosed this information about their Swedish colleagues to us after we tried to obtain these documents from Sweden for years to no avail. To this day, the Swedish authorities have not provided us with any explanation as to why key documents were destroyed, nor when and how, and on whose instructions. All of our attempts to shed light on the matter through litigation have failed. Not surprised. Why were key documents destroyed by CPS? It's probably the key question. They've always maintained there was nothing unusual about the deletion of his account. It was deleted 3 months after he retired in 2014, and at that point, Keir Starmer was no longer even director of prosecution at CPS. It's also always maintained that the deletion of the account was consistent with their record management policies, but CPS's record management manual states that general correspondence related to a criminal case file should be retained for, quote, 5 years from the date of the most recent correspondence. That would still be 5 years from today, because they're still going on. But they deleted it anyway. Right? Because it's still a relevant active criminal file case. The guy's in prison there now. So, after reiterating to us for years that Paul Close's emails were destroyed 3 months after he retired, last January, the CPS changed their version of the facts, stating that there is a document which is described as desk instructions in relation to the deleting of material within 30 days. So, was Paul Close's account deleted after 3 months or after 30 days? And why was it deleted? Is the Crown Prosecution Service confident that all the relevant emails and documents were transferred from the email account and copied to the case file before deletion? My guess would be no, but she's asking the question. So, in recent months, we've got a member of parliament from Labour, John McDonnell. He filed a FOIA request with the CPS to learn whether the then Director of Prosecution, Keir Starmer, was involved about the advice Paul Close gave the Swedish prosecutors not to question Assange in London, and about the fact that the Swedes considered dropping the extradition case in 2013. Why they're getting so granular at this point? Why do you need this little nitpicky bullshit, whatever reason? Let the guy out. Free this man. Free this man. All right. He also asked which documents CPS destroyed, why, how, and on whose instructions, and if CPS could provide him with a list of legal cases in which the CPS deleted key documents in the last decade, other than this. Finally, McDonnell asked whether Paul Close's email account could be retrieved from any backup tapes or any other backup methods. My guess is there's probably a backup DAT sitting around somewhere that's got it. So, with regard to Keir Starmer, CPS replied to the British parliamentarian, a parliamentarian that has teeth, how about that? And a search of the documentation has revealed no indication that the CPS hold information on whether Starmer was involved about those key decisions relative to Assange. Yeah, they don't put that stuff in writing. However, they clarified, we hold 59 boxes of information pertaining to the case of Mr. Assange. Oh my God. The team concluded that it would not be proportionate to review all of these in depth in keeping with the provisions of FOIA Act. What?
Why not?
Give me those boxes right now.
What's in the box?
As with the destruction of Paul Close's email account, the CPS argued that it cannot know that all relevant emails were transferred to the case file before the account was deleted, though that was the standard practice. Finally, the public authority replied that CPS does not hold any backups of deleted email accounts, and that in the last decade, they could only identify a single case of premature destruction of case material related to a case other than that of Julian Assange. While CPS does not characterize the case of the deletion of Paul Close's account as a data breach, in the other case, it does. That's also interesting. Such bad luck for Julian Assange. He was held in limbo for almost a decade, in part thanks to the legal advice CPS gave to the Swedish prosecutors. Key correspondence on this case was destroyed perhaps 3 months or perhaps 30 days after the lawyer who worked on his case from the very start retired. There's no way to know what was destroyed and what was kept. There are no backups. In 10 years, there was only one case of premature destruction of documents. One other case. Assange's backlog was such that not only did the Crown Prosecution Service destroy documentation on his case, but Swedish prosecutors did so as well. As for the rest of the correspondence between CPS and the U.S. authorities, obtaining it by going through the law would seem to be mission impossible. John?
That's Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
I was thinking yeah, it's very similar. It's very similar.
Right. So, John McDonnell believes that there must be an independent inquiry into the role of the CPS in relation to the case of Assange. It could be the last and only chance. Will it happen?